Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a sort of recap regarding the Golden State Killer, East Area Rapist, Original Night Stalker, however you may know him. Of course now we know it's Deangelo, but I'm going to be doing a little bit of a recap on that. If you've seen any of my other videos, you may have seen my book review that I did for, I think it was February, for I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. So I know that this case kind of just blew up when they caught him. So if you're not as familiar with it or you weren't before that, you may want to look at my book review video, or I'm sure you can find all that information online as well. There have been a lot of recaps, timelines, things like that. So with Deangelo, they caught him in April. I don't have the exact date, but it was several weeks ago, more than a month ago. So they found him through familial DNA. And if you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen I posted a lot of videos when it first happened and my thoughts and all of that. But they found him through familial DNA. The website that they use is called GED, I believe, G-E-D. And the way that it works, it's not like Ancestry or 23andMe, which I have used 23andMe, where you provide them a sample of your saliva, you know, and they do all of the research for you and send you all that information and all of that. So the way that this website works that they used, you take like your DNA information that you already have, so by using one of those other services, and you can input it into this website. So what happens is when you do Ancestry, you can only really be linked to the people who also used Ancestry. So I use 23andMe. I know someone who's used Ancestry. If they were related to me, we would not be able to see that we're connected because she's using a different company, different database, right, all that stuff. Of course, they can still tell you your Ancestry information, but you can't really link to someone who's not part of that same network. So what this company does is you input your information. So if I input mine, someone that used Ancestry input theirs, we would be able to find each other. So I believe it's free, and that's what they use. So they already had his DNA, right, from all the other crimes that he had committed in the past. They put the information in and they got a hit. I believe they worked their way from distant cousins to, I think, second cousins. And that's how they were able to narrow it down. So of course the privacy issues have come up on that. And the company, right after it happened, released a statement saying that their users, in their privacy policy, I believe, it states that their information can be used for a lot of things, including this. So there aren't any legal issues with the police using that because that's what was stated on their website. So I think they also, like their public statement said, hey, you know, if you were worried about this, then remove all your stuff from our website. So I think there have been other leads as well since then that people or police have found for other crimes. So it's been very interesting. On that debate, I can see both sides, but I do fall under, you know, they didn't do it illegally. You know, that company, their privacy policies didn't state that that can be done. So for me, the legal part of it satisfies the fact that they're in their right to do that. And I'm glad they found him because he was a monster, is a monster. So to me, I don't see really any issues here. And of course, I definitely believe in, you know, Ancestry and 23andMe, their right to not share that information if they don't want to, right? So I'm not saying force them to give up that information, but I think that if everything was done legally, to me, there's no issue. And I'm sure if I looked into my feelings on that a little bit more, I would have more to say, but for now, I'm glad they found him. I'm glad that everything was done legally, so there won't be any issues in trying to press charges or to move forward with pressing charges, right? Because they have already pressed, I believe now, there are 12 murder charges. So Sacramento, Ventura, Santa Barbara, Orange County. So they're all racking up. So that's how they found him. Paul Holes, if you're familiar with this whole case, he was the lead investigator for Contra Costa County, which is in the East Bay, so northeast of San Francisco. I am familiar with that area. I've been there. I lived in San Francisco for a while, so I knew people that lived up in that area, and they visited that area. It's really nice. That's where Paul Holes is from. He's kind of a big deal when it comes to this case. He was looking for the Golden State Killer for over 20 years, right? And he actually retired about a month, couple weeks before they found him. But he knew that he was a suspect, that they had connected to DNA. And even before he knew that, he actually went to Deangelo's home in Citrus Heights, which is in the Sacramento area. Also familiar with that area. I lived in the next city over, and so I spent a lot of time there several years ago. But he actually went to Deangelo's house, parked, thought about getting out and, you know, going up and knocking on his door, but changed his mind, and I'm glad he did, because who knows what would have happened if he had done that. But that was just super interesting and crazy. He was actually today on My Favorite Murder. It's a podcast, if you're not familiar with it, but you love everything murder, true crime, you should check it out. Karen is hilarious. And of course Georgia is also hilarious. So they had Paul Holes on the show today. And they also had one of the other investigators. Now I'm drawing a blank on his name. He worked with Michelle on the book as one of her investigators, but he was on the show as well. And I'm gonna pull it up because I should know this. Billy, that's right, I knew it was with the B. Billy Jensen, who is a great researcher. He's working on a lot of other things right now. He helped Michelle, and just is super familiar with Golden State Killer and a lot of other unsolved crimes as well. So he's awesome. And they were just on the show this morning on the podcast. I guess they just released it today. And they were just talking about everything that happened, some things that just came out recently. So things that they found in Deangelo's home. If you are familiar with the cases, you know that when he would bind the woman, he would take them into the living room. He would turn on the TV and put a towel, a sheet, something over the TV so that, at least from what everyone assumes from what we've read or what we know, so that he could still have some light, be able to see what he was doing, but also so that the neighbors wouldn't notice like light coming through the living room randomly at whatever time in the morning and be suspicious or anything like that. So that was something that he did. And he wouldn't have the noise on, right, so he could still hear, but he would put something over the TV, you know, while it was on. So one of the things that they found in his home is in his bedroom. I think his computer screen, he had, I think it was a towel over the screen. So they're thinking, you know, is he trying to, like, does he relive the things that he did? You know, what's he doing in his bedroom with that, you know, over his computer screen? You know, he called one of his victims 20 something years later over the phone, just to freak her out, telling her, you know, remember the time that we played, and just saying things to her. And of course she recognizes his voice and it's him, and so who knows if he's sitting in this bedroom with that on the screen and just kind of reliving that moment, because now he's old, right? He doesn't have that same adrenaline rush. He can't experience that, right? He's retired from doing that, but he still wants to live in those moments, right? And so that was super interesting and crazy. So that something that they talked about in the show. He had the last hearing was on the 14th of May. He has another one coming up at the end of the month on the 29th. His attorney is trying to keep the information regarding the items that they found in the home out of the evidence, so it's not presented during trial. So I think that's what the next hearing is for, along with some other things. He did walk into the last hearing as opposed to in the wheelchair. Paul Holes did talk about that on the podcast today, talking about how it was bullshit. You know, he didn't need to be in the wheelchair when they were kind of staking him out, you know, before they arrested him, trying to get an idea of who he was and his routines and all of that. They said he rode his motorcycle, high speeds. He, you know, wasn't like this old man with a cane. He's walking around just fine, you know, in his yard, fixing his car, like all of these things. And so the wheelchair just seemed like some sort of play to get some sympathy. So he mentioned that he thought that was bullshit. So I thought that was super interesting. So just a lot of different things that they talked about on the podcast, and just talked about when he found out that they had matched the DNA, and just how exciting and crazy, and how much Michelle was almost like a partner to him in this, and how much they helped each other, and just it was just great to hear that information. So they talked about a lot of stuff. You're right, a lot of stuff moving forward. Of course there will, you know, there will be a trial, but who knows how quickly that'll happen. These things take time, you know, lawyers delay things, you know, it's part of the whole system. Is just very lengthy and takes a long time, and but I'm sure we will see that, even though it may take some time to get there. But that's super interesting. I'm trying to, there's so many things that happened in the beginning that I'm trying to think of. So when he, I think, was in Davis, and he attacked a student, he kept saying, "I hate you, Bonnie, I hate you, Bonnie." For a long time, the victims, investigators, right, thought that he was saying mommy. And then of course they found out when they arrested him that he had been engaged to a Bonnie, and that had obviously not happened. They didn't get married, and so they think that that was kind of him taking out his frustration, and saying her name during that attack. So he's also been married, so I don't believe they're married now, but his wife is or was an attorney. He has daughters, and I believe grandchildren, which is just super, just crazy and interesting. And I think one of the articles that I read early on said that he had talked about the Golden State Killer with his family and made comments, and it sounds like he was, of course, keeping up with everything that was happening. You know, I'm sure with the book coming out, he was probably keeping up with this. Maybe he read it. I haven't really read anything that says that he has, or if he hasn't, but I imagine that he was keeping an eye on it. I mean, especially with things heating up, I imagine that he knew that they could have caught him at any time. So that's super interesting. I'm really trying to think of what else. So of course he was a cop in Auburn, and then he was in Visalia for a while. So all of those things kind of connect into these places. You know, he was arrested for shoplifting dog repellent and a hammer, which if you're familiar with the cases, you know that there was a case where a gentleman was walking with his dog went like ahead of him, and then finally when he got to where the dog went, the dog came out whimpering. He had been cut like just across the stomach, and then I think maybe a couple days later, Deangelo had attacked somebody in that neighborhood. So it sounds like he was there prowling, and he probably went out and bought this repellent so that, you know, he wouldn't encounter that again. So it's crazy because when he got caught for stealing that, he just quit the police force. So they didn't do an investigation, which seems crazy to me. Even if he was quitting, right, it seems like he would still want to investigate something like that, but I'm sure that freaked him out, and so he quit. And then, right, all the other things that he was doing that led him to Orange County. I haven't seen anything really definitive on that. You know, the first 2 weeks when it happened, there was a lot of information. I've been super busy, and I have kept up with a lot of what's been happening, but that I'm not sure if they ever said what the connection was. So I probably have to look a little bit more into that. What did happen is, when a couple of days before they arrested him, I was thinking about this. It was just on my mind, wondering if they're ever going to catch him, and it was so crazy to me when it finally happened. Just surreal, and I was just eating up all the information that I could find. Of course, My Favorite Murder did. They had done a podcast with Patton Oswalt before, you know, after the book came out, and they did an emergency one. I think they came out the day that they arrested him, maybe. I think either that or the day after, kind of talking about everything and how crazy it was. And of course, as it so happens, my copy of the book, I let my friend borrow it. She was writing a book for school about people that are into murder, and so she needed to be able to like flip through stuff, find information, and with the audiobook, it's just, I assume it's hard to do. So I let her borrow it maybe like a week and a half before they arrested him, and so I was all that time I was without it, and I wanted to look at it again, wanted to reread it, wanted to just like go through it, knowing now who he is. And I got it back maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe more than that, and I have been wanting to read it again, but I've been really busy, and I'm reading another book for my book review this month, so I haven't got to read it again. But I did go back and read the letter to an old man. If you haven't read the book, you need to. It's so good. It's written just so amazingly. I don't even know how to describe it, and there's a lot of detail, but it doesn't read in this boring like just bullet point way. Just the way she wrote everything, it just feels so fluid, and I just love her writing. Like I said, I have a book review on it. Can go back and search it, I'm sure, and it's just amazing. And I read it, I bought it as soon as it came out, and then I read it, and then I got really busy like for a week, and then I just read the rest of it in one sitting, and it was at night, really late, in my office, and it gave me the chills. And I know this story, you know, I knew all the crimes and all the information, but it just gave me such just like chills reading it, like scary. So it's written so well. And the epilogue letter to an old man is just amazing. You know, she talks about how other things that he did, how that's not him. He can't, you know, jump fences. He's not, all of that has gone, and technology is better now, and, you know, we're on your tail kind of thing. And I just love the end of it. She says, open the door, show us your face, and walk into the light. So it's just, I know that she would have loved to be here to see, you know, him be arrested, but wherever she is, she knows, and I'm sure she's happy. And we're also happy, and I think everyone that's read the book, that's familiar with the case, is just so happy that we had this, even right just before they caught him. And I think it's amazing to have read this and known the story before they caught him, and then be able to go back and reread it and see it in a different light, and see all the information in a different light, and dissect all the things that he did based on, now we know that he was a cop. You know, we know his background, where he was from, his physique, his stories, that he was engaged. Like, we know all of this information now that makes sense on a lot of things that he did. And for me, one of the reasons that I love true crime, murder, that I've always loved it, is that part of me that enjoys knowing the psychology of why people do what they do. That's just something that I love, and I can appreciate unsolved crimes, and I think that it's that curiosity that wants to profile, you know, but I also love solved crimes because I can compare the person who committed the crimes to what they did and why. And I'm just so glad that this was solved, because for a lot of reasons, right? Because it was solved, because so many victims, and bringing him to justice, and also to be able to hopefully get more information on why. And I can't wait for the trial, because I hope that he'll at least have the decency to actually speak tell us why. Don't plead the fifth, you know, like tell us what you did. Stand up tall and be a man about it. You know, Paul Holes on the podcast today on My Favorite Murder, that's what he pretty much said, like the bullshit with the wheelchair, you know, stand up and take ownership for what you did, and tell us why, because I think the victims deserve to know. And I think just in general, if you're willing to do something like that, you should be able to, you know, stand up and tell us why and tell your story so that we can piece everything together. And so I'm really excited to see what the trial will look like. Of course, it may not be for a long time, but it's been, you know, how many years has it been? Over 30 years, 40, since he started this. So I think, you know, we can wait for a trial and find out why and kind of just piece everything together. So wanted to give that update. Sorry, this is kind of long. I'm sure there are other things that I want to say that I can't think of, but just kind of wanted to do this really quickly before I forget to do it, because I was updating on my Instagram story, but I know not everyone follows me on Instagram, and I wanted to kind of just sit down and say all of it and tell you guys how I feel. But like I said, if you haven't read the book, I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara, you need to read it. It's amazing. Even if you're not into true crime, it's just a great read in general. You can find it really anywhere. I bought this at Barnes & Noble. You can find it on Amazon, online, anywhere probably. Today on My Favorite Murder, Billy Jensen talked about the fact that they're going to add something to the book. So what term am I trying to think of? And not an afterword. I know there's a better word for this, but they're going to be adding to Michelle's book, I believe. So I don't know if they're going to add it and re-release like an updated version. I will buy it no matter what. I don't care, but they are doing that. And I think he's writing something of his own. Paul Holes, I believe, is also writing about his experience. I don't know if it's just about the Golden State Killer, Deangelo, or if it's about some other crimes that he's worked on, cold cases, things like that. But that'll be exciting as well. Hoping to see more of him in the true crime universe on TV as anything. I love him. He's so handsome. Of course, people have seen a lot of him lately, especially after this case blew up. So if you haven't seen the hashtag Hot for Holes, it's all over the place, and yes, I use it too. But he's a handsome man, and he's smart, funny, all this good stuff. So he's just a freaking superhero in my eyes. All the work that he did on this case. So I hope to see more of him, but I just wanted to share that with you guys. So sorry this was long. Feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Of course, I don't only do videos where I talk about serial killers and murder, but that is one of my favorite things. So you may see that more in the future. Feel free to like the video, and feel free to comment if you are also in love with Paul Holes. If you also love murder, if you love the book, really anything that I talked about in this video, feel free to comment. I love to hear from you guys, and I will see you on my next video.